Once, there was a writer who spent his entire life in search of a story. Not just any old story, but one that would give his life purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. One day as he walked through the city streets, he passed by a small bookshop that he had never seen before. Upon entering, the man was taken aback by the beautiful relics on display and the fragrances of exotic incense. The walls were covered from floor to ceiling with books of all shapes and sizes. As the man browsed the store, he found all kinds of interesting books, yet none seemed to hold the story he was looking for.
"This, we believe, is what you are in search of,"
said a voice from behind him. He hadn't noticed the shop owners watching him from the front of the store. She placed the book on the counter. Engraved on the front cover was a strange symbol, which seemed to be calling him by name. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew through the store, opening the book to the beginning of a story.
Chapter 5. The Pair of Superheroes.
The letters on the page seemed to brighten and blur before his eyes. The shop owners had disappeared, and he found himself being thrust into a whole new world.
Without looking, jump into a world with no limits. Let my fear fall to the west side beyond dreams. This is the realm of the imagination. Deepest ocean by the stars, moving mountains with my mind. Climb towers to the heavens, for I am capable of what I can see without the eye. They call me a superhuman. Ain't no place that I won't go. I just wanna be one of your superheroes.
Breaking news. There have been reports of yet another UFO sighting today in the city of Marshall. Although many attested to witnessing the flying object, no one can seem to say what it is. Some think it's a bird, some a plane, while others have even ventured to call it a god. No statement released from authorities yet. In other news, a large wildfire broke out last night.
Meanwhile, deep underground, in the far outskirts of the city, a scientist laughed out loud to himself. For at this very moment, tied up in his lair, was the very creature that the world was looking for. For years, this scientist had spent his days researching and studying this man that he now held captive. And finally he had him just where he wanted. In chains. He interrogated his prisoner, using every vice of torture and testing he could think of in order to get his victim to crack. But to no avail.
"Tell me who you are,"
the scientist yelled, as he slapped his prisoner across the face. But the prisoner said nothing. For weeks the scientist continued this process, determined to find a weakness. Still, no response. Finally, the scientist pulled out a gun and pushed it against the prisoner's head. The prisoner looked directly into the eyes of the scientist and said only one thing.
"I'm still calling you."
Leading scientist and professor of psychology, Dr. Jeffrey Hodges, has now been missing for over 6 weeks. As a world-renowned scientist and activist, Dr. Hodges has spent much of his career capturing and debunking outlandish claims of superheroism across the globe. Dr. Hodges says, believing in superpowers is dangerous to our social structure because it teaches us to negate our responsibilities for frivolous fantasy. Authorities will continue the frantic manhunt to find the doctor and bring him safely home to his family.
The scientist, also known as the evil Dr. Hodges within the superhero community, was taken aback by the power and stillness of this strange being. He looked down at the gun in his hand and instantly realized the horror of his actions. And for many hours the superhero and the doctor conversed about the powers that lay dormant within all people. He explained how superheroes all over the world have watched in chains as false identities, known as the Alias, have ruled over society, causing people to forget their own superpowers. The doctor wondered what his own superpower might be. As a child, Jeffrey knew his powers well, but now it all seemed so foreign. Just then, a loud banging erupted outside the door. News reports flashed, announcing that police had found the location of the missing Dr. Jeffrey Hodges. Dozens of cop cars and helicopters swarmed outside the lair. They were surrounded and the doctor knew the life of his superhero was at stake. For the law would take no chances. They would kill the superhero, without a care. Time was running out. Yet how could Jeffrey unlock his inner strength? The superhero commanded the doctor to remove its mask. It was time for Jeffrey to know the truth. And Jeffrey reached out and slowly removed the mask from the super being, only to recognize his own face staring back at him.
I am you.
Inside of every human heart is a cluster of supercells called neurons. These neurons are identical to the cells found in the brain.
Thinking cells within the heart. This means your heart can think and has its own interpretations, super thoughts, that you can listen to and follow independently of the brain
to become your own superhero.
Listen to your heart.
Without looking, jump into a world with no limits. Let my fear fall to the west side. Beyond dreams, this is the realm of the imagination. Deepest ocean by the stars, moving mountains with my mind. Climb towers to the heavens, for I am capable of what I can see without the eye. They call me a superhuman. Ain't no place that I won't go. I just wanna be one of your superheroes.
You are one or two. Even if a gun got through, I still cover you like a mother do. You are my only chance to rewrite this. We play by the rules, now we don't like this. We want to change here, they won't tolerate it. They had us in chains here, no one to help us escape it but me.
They calling me a superhuman. Ain't no place that I won't go. I'ma change as soon as I run up out of that telephone pole. Where you at, I'm gon' save ya. Bless the land, said I'll save ya. I just wanna be one of your superheroes.
All the things we saw, just to bring peace to us all. I dream of 3 little things that turn into much, much more. God chooses the leaders. When I was young, I hoped I could be one. I hope I can see one day my dreams flying in front of me. I'm soaring, I can't believe what my eyes put in front of me. Hope, 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 hope.
They calling me a superhuman. Ain't no place that I won't go. I'ma change as soon as I run up out of that telephone pole.
that? It's a bird, it's a plane, it's a man, it's a god. What's that? It's a bird, it's a plane, it's a man, it's a god. What's that? It's a bird, it's a plane, it's a man, it's a god. What's